What happens when you spend your entire childhood being turned into content, and then the world starts counting down to the day you turn 18? Because that's the part people keep skipping. Everyone's debating Piper Rockelle like this is just another influencer pivot, like it's just she grew up and she made a choice. But the way this story is being framed right now is genuinely unsettling, especially when mainstream outlets start describing it like a glow-up, like empowerment, like she's finally in control. Because here's the question nobody wants to answer out loud. If someone is put on camera at 9 years old, raised inside a monetized machine, pushed through scandal after scandal, and then, the moment mainstream money dries up, they move to adult platforms, is that control? Or is that the pipeline working exactly as designed? And the reason this matters is simple. Piper isn't just a person anymore. She's a blueprint, a case study in what happens when the internet raises you, the algorithm owns your childhood, and the adults around you learn that attention pays better than protection. So let's slow this down and look at what's actually happening, why the she's in charge narrative feels so wrong, and why this story is bigger than Piper. Because it's really about the system that created her. Recently, a major news outlet framed Piper's story as a clean transformation. Child influencer turned adult platform millionaire, brushing off critics, making it clear she's in control. And that wording alone tells you everything about the angle they're pushing. Because when you hear child influencer and adult platform success in the same sentence, your brain should not think empowerment. It should think, how did we get here? They want you to focus on the final step, the money, the numbers, the supposed confidence, but the real story is everything that happened before the choice even existed. Piper didn't wake up one day, at 18, and invent this path. This path was built around her, for years, by the internet, by incentives, by adults who benefited from keeping her online. She didn't start as an adult making an adult decision. She started as a kid in a system where being visible was profitable and being protected was optional. Pageants, early fame, early exposure. And then, social media turned that into a machine that never turns off. When a child becomes a brand early enough, the brand doesn't grow up like a person. It grows up like a product that has to keep releasing, keep escalating, keep feeding the audience, and escalation is the key word here. Because over time, what worked last year stops working. The thumbnails need to be louder, the content needs to be edgier, the engagement needs to be stronger, and eventually, innocence stops converting. So the system pushes creators toward whatever keeps the numbers alive. Fast forward a few years, and that machine starts breaking. Legal issues, public controversy, reputation damage, and regardless of where you fall on the details, one thing is undeniable. That period permanently changed how Piper's brand was treated. Once that happens, platforms don't look at you as a person anymore. They look at you as a liability. Monetization slows, ads get pulled, sponsors disappear, and suddenly the platform that paid for your life no longer does. So what happens next? The internet doesn't gently guide you toward a normal career. It offers you the fastest, most profitable alternative. And if your entire life has been built around online income, that alternative doesn't feel extreme. It feels inevitable. That's why one of the most important moments in this whole story isn't a headline. It's Piper herself saying she wants to do YouTube again, but realistically can't make money from it. That single detail destroys the idea of free choice. Because if YouTube isn't viable anymore, and your audience expects constant content, and your name still carries attention, then the pressure doesn't disappear. It redirects. And calling that control is misleading at best. Control would mean options. Control would mean space to step back. Control would mean adults prioritizing long-term consequences over short-term profit. But this looks like someone being funneled into the most lucrative lane left. Then there's the countdown culture, because this didn't start with Piper. The internet has had an obsession for years with waiting for young celebrities to turn 18, and when that culture gets normalized, hinted at, or softly endorsed by mainstream media, it stops being just weird. It becomes dangerous, because it trains people to see youth as a product that matures into monetization. Piper didn't invent that. She grew up inside it, so when she leans into it, people act like she's masterminding a strategy. But what if she's just adapting to the environment the internet built around her? What if this isn't a power move, but a survival response? And here's where the story gets even more uncomfortable. Because when you look at the people around Piper, money is always just beneath the surface. The lifestyle, the praise, the normalization, the framing of this as just business. But support is not the same as protection. Someone can be surrounded by approval and still be led down a path that follows them forever. Because the internet doesn't forget. Screenshots don't expire. Re-uploads don't care about the context. Adult platforms aren't like brand deals. They become the first thing people bring up in every future conversation. So, if this is being celebrated without anyone seriously asking, is this what you want in 10 years? Then the system is failing her again, just in a different way. Then there's the environment she's being pulled into. Not just collaborators, but the culture. Because when a newly 18 creator, raised online since childhood, is placed into a space where adult creators frame this as the smartest business move, it becomes the default. Not because it's healthy, but because it's profitable. And that's why this doesn't feel like reinvention, it feels like continuation. The same logic that's been applied to her since she was a kid, just wearing a different label. There's also a layer people avoid talking about honestly, parasocial money. These platforms don't just sell images, they sell access, they sell connection, they sell the illusion of closeness. And when someone has been famous since childhood, that parasocial pull is even stronger. Some people didn't just discover Piper, they watched her grow up. That's what makes the situation so disturbing. And when media frames it like a glamorous transformation, they ignore the darker reality of how the internet consumes youth and rewards escalation. This isn't about shaming Piper. She's not the villain here. This is about calling out the system that profits from turning childhood fame into adult monetization and pretending it's empowerment. Piper herself has already hinted that she doesn't want to do this forever, that she wants a future that looks completely different. And I genuinely hope that happens. But here's the part nobody prepares young creators for. Even if you stop tomorrow, the internet keeps receipts forever. You can quit a platform, but you can't quit the archive. You can't quit the screenshots. You can't quit the reputation loop. And if you were pushed into fame as a child, you deserve people around you who understand that reality. So when mainstream outlets frame this as a success story, I'm not impressed. I'm concerned. Because they're not just reporting, they're normalizing. And when you normalize this path, you send a message to millions of younger viewers that this is a valid and celebrated outcome. That's not empowerment, that's a warning sign. Piper might be making money. She might call it her choice, she might feel like she's taking the wheel, but the real question is whether she was ever allowed to grow up without the internet steering her life in the first place. Because if the answer is no, then this isn't a victory story. It's a cautionary one, and the scariest part is we're watching it unfold in real time, while people clap.